Good morning. Yes, I don't know how you follow Kid Wire either. I've never seen a deer impaled in a human being before, but someone had to say it. As Gus said, last week we talked about the issue of justice and shining justice into the lives of those around us, and particularly the community of Tasmania. And I talked about how acts of justice were really a hallmark of the ministry of Jesus when he was on this earth, and how he began his ministry with words revolving around this issue of justice. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." He stepped into people's circumstances and shone justice into the lives of the outcasts of the day, people who were hurting. And when he shone justice into their lives, they received acceptance, healing, restoration and dignity. And as Gus mentioned, I also talked about the state of Tasmania at the moment, the opportunities that we have as churches, in fact all churches and all Christians in this state have, to shine justice into the lives of hurting Tasmanians. Opportunities to make a difference to those most in need. The interesting thing is, when it comes to justice, Jesus has gone before us in this and talks about the work that he did when he was on this earth. And in fact, he continues to go before us. One of the songs we sang talked about how God is always working, and he is always working in the lives of everyone. And we have a part to play, and that's the crazy plan that God has for us, is we all of us, are the physical presence of God on earth and have a part to play in bringing justice to the worlds in which we live. So what would Tasmania look like if together we committed even more of our lives to acts of justice in small ways, as individuals, in our own worlds that are immediately around us, in the lives of our families and our friends, but also if collectively we shone justice to deal with some of those bigger issues. And for example, community-wide shining of justice in places like this church is located in the Clarence Plains area. In fact, what if the Christian community organically became a network of justice that spread across Tasmania? What if, like Moses in Exodus chapter 4, passage I referred to last week, we began simply by using what was in our hands to step out in faith? And really, to do this, all we need to do is to use more of what we already have in our hands. And I want to focus a little bit on the Grace Centre this morning, which we saw last week, the amazing things that have happened over the last few years in that space and continue to happen. And like that building project, I think we can rebuild lives simply by starting where we are, using what we have and doing what we can. And you should all be very familiar with that phrase. So I'm going to use it in a different context. It should be easy to remember. Because that building project, the Grace Centre, is an amazing work of God, and that's made possible through the collective acts of faith of many here this morning. And I think it really can be used as a metaphor for how we can also go about transforming lives that are broken and making hope for a better future. So I'd actually like to get Dermot up. You've heard Dermot talk a lot about the Grace Centre, so Dermot, if you can just pop up here. Because I want to tease out this metaphor a little bit more, this metaphor of a building project and building lives. So Dermot, it's been an amazing story, and quite concrete, I guess, in terms of, we can see the transformation that's taken place. But I assume that it has not always been an easy journey. And I just thought it'd be good to share some of the things that I think some people would know, but others may not, about some of the frustrations perhaps that you've experienced during this time. We'll have to wipe those down again, but I do have a clock. Really okay to say.
It's been a while since I've used it. Frustrations, that's a great question. Probably, we've been going for 5 years now, and when we first started the project, we said it'd take 5 to 10 years, but if you come back after 5 or 10 years, you'll see some major change. Along the way, it's been very much a practical project in the community, but along the way, we've hit numerous obstacles. One of the ones that maybe some would be aware of was our big run-in with Taswater, which took nearly 2 years to turn around, and it was looking like it was going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars. And I remember, especially during one particular January period, I started dreaming about Taswater, and I thought, okay, this is really beginning to bother me. But in the course of that process, the whole situation was turned around, and Taswater ended up paying us money for the inconvenience caused to us, and then going ahead and totally underwriting the cost of putting in a brand new water meter out the front of the property and getting it all sorted. They apologised to us for it. And that makes for a great story, but the reality of it was 2 years of not knowing how it was going to work out, and having to continue to get up each day and keep on keeping on, believing that somehow we're going to get through this. And don't ever underestimate in the moment when you start a project and you're all fired up, the reality of having to push through when all of that emotion of starting a project has gone. I think anything that you accomplish in life, you're going to hit setbacks, and that was a major one that went for 2 years, but there have been numerous other ones along the way that when you look at them, you think to yourself, wow, this could really derail everything that we're doing here, or this could really set everything back, and you ask yourself the question, where is God in the midst of it all? Why hasn't it been easily overcome? But the reality of it is, oftentimes when you start out pursuing something, you're going to hit roadblocks, and you just got to keep on keeping on. And that's been one of the challenges, I know for me personally, is just maintaining a positive attitude when it doesn't seem like things are going to turn around. And like I said, that one took 2 years of just hanging in there until it actually turned.
So, God was obviously involved throughout, but did it feel like at times you're sort of like asking God, Lord, what have we taken on here?
I always blame God when anything goes wrong. So I don't have a problem with going to God saying, hey, you've really stuffed up here. This is your problem. We went into this with the best of intentions. And look, honestly, one of the things that have kept me sane over the last 30 years of ministry is just the fact that I have been absolutely, I felt totally confident with going to God with my complaints and my issues, because He is just so much, He's so much smarter than us. And I know for myself, oftentimes in the middle of stuff, when God has said, I want you to go in this direction, that's the last you hear God speaking about it. And I remember as a young Christian once hearing a message by a teacher, and he said, when God tells you to do something and you step out to do it, don't get discouraged if you don't hear Him speaking again until it's accomplished, because God hasn't changed His mind. And oftentimes when you're in the middle of stuff and you're having to push through, the temptation is to go looking for a new word or to look for a way out. And the reality of it is, if He hasn't changed His mind, you just keep doing what He's told, the last thing He told you to do, until He tells you the next thing. And the truth of the matter is, that can sometimes not just take weeks or months, it can take years before God then brings a new season or a new shift in your life. That's normal. That's par for the course. You just got to keep on keeping on.
Do you think there's anything you really felt you learnt on your faith journey throughout this?
Nothing.
I'm
not going to. I'm joking, but I'm telling the truth. Actually, you will learn in the first few years when you're serving God most of what you're going to then be relearn as you're going along in your Christian walk. But because it is just simply a case of putting into practice what God has already taught you. And I think, Jesus was incredibly simple with his message, but his message is incredibly profound in that it has the ability, the same thing has the ability over and over again to produce life for you and growth as well. And so when you say, did I learn anything? It was kind of, God said, do this. We start to do it. We hit roadblocks. It's par for the course. It's like, here we go again. You're stepping out, you're trying to do something. But what you discover along the way is that God is faithful. Yes. His time frame isn't yours. I remember an Italian lady said to me when I first got saved, she said this. She said, God is very seldom early, but he's never late. That has stayed with me all the way through my Christian walk. The truth of the matter is sometimes he's the second before midnight, but he always comes through.
But it's been an encouragement, the progress throughout.
Absolutely. For us as a church, I think that we are actually involved in something that is far bigger than we see with our eyes. We are more than just a Sunday meeting, and we are physically, tangibly in the community, in a venue that isn't all about us. You see, most people think that church is all about weekends. They think it's all about Sundays. We have been able to totally flip that on its head with what we're doing physically in Clarence Plains, and our building is all about our community, which when you think about it, that's Jesus' heart. He didn't come to be served, he came to serve. And who did he come to serve? Not the people that were well, but the people that weren't well, the people that needed a doctor. And so we've actually been able to, in our community, I believe, demonstrate the heart of Jesus for people who are outside of the Sunday gathering in a really powerful, physical, tangible way. When we say that the Grace Centre is our gift to the community, that isn't just simple words. It's a gift that's cost us thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands of man and women hours over the last 5 years. It's a gift that keeps on giving, which is what I keep telling myself when I'm feeling depressed. It's a gift that keeps on giving to the community. It's a sign to our community that Jesus loves them regardless of how they respond back to him. And I think that going forward, it's going to create something that we are all, we're already a part of it, but we're going to sit back and go, wow, that is far better than what I expected to see.
Thank you. Can I get you to just a quick one? Thanks, I appreciate it.
Dad, the top of it.
What?
The top of the microphone. I meant to work the top.
Nobody's going to lick the top of the microphone.
Yeah, but like you're breathing on it.
Okay, thanks, hon.
Thanks.
I did say today would be a bit lighter than last week. So. I think you can see that there's, if you think about it, it's almost like a parable, the story of the Grace Centre. And it's one that I think really does apply to how we work with people, how we build into their lives and how we help them move on, how we journey with them. Like the Grace Centre, people's lives can be very messy.
Yep.
It was interesting at the start of this journey with the Grace Centre, Dermot going through and actually finding out there was a lot more going on that probably wasn't great in that space than we first realised. And that's really what it's like when you journey with people, or when you get alongside them. You often find out that you thought they might be struggling with things, but there's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
But God is there in that space. We took the first step. We really kept it simple, which was one of the rooms we turned into a meeting room for the community. It was a relatively simple job compared to some of the other tasks that have gone on. It was about starting where we were, doing what we could, giving what we could to the Grace Centre at that point. But we've seen that develop. It's not, as Dermot said, it's not happened in the time that perhaps we hoped it would. But it is happening, it is progressing. There are times where it feels like nothing's changing, or things are going backwards, or you find out things like with Taswater that are just frustrating, go on for longer, and you need to work through that. And again, that's like journeying with people. You would know this from families, if nothing else, if you've never taken that journey with a friend. God was with us as a church, with the Grace Centre through that time. As you journey with people, God is with you. In fact, with the Grace Centre, there is a chance that it could, I hesitate to say this, but it could come to nothing because, we're on this journey. We believe it's going to happen, and I'm sure it will. But it's a building at the end of the day. But the thing you know about people's lives is that God always wants the best for people's lives. God always wants people to come into relationship with Him. So God is always wanting things to change. He's always with you when you're working to walk alongside people and journey with them and help them to reach their potential in life. Yeah. So the parallels are there. If you're thinking about building into people's lives, think about the Grace Centre. Think about what happened. Because it's very much the same. And I think it's actually a real gift that God's given us, this experience, for what we do as a community of believers. So I believe God is speaking to many of us, including me, here today about stepping out in faith and using more of what we have, more of our resources, more of our time, more of our connections, more of our money, to bless others, to shine justice into their lives. He's constantly speaking to us again and again about starting where we are, using what we have and doing what we can. So to continue the encouragement, I'd like to ask 4 people to join me up here. You know who you are. These are people just like you and I. These are people that have, in certain instances, just started where they are. They're using what they have and they're doing what they can.
Couldn't get in the mood.
And I just thought it'd be great to hear a little bit about their journeys today, things that you may not know about them, things that you may. So we have with us Dave Bloomfield, Cheryl Dwyer, David Oney, and Anne Harris. I'm just going to slip this out of the way a bit. How about we give them a bit of a hand? Some of you may not know that I was trained as a lawyer. One of the things you're taught as a lawyer is when you're cross-examining people, you never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I'm about to do that this morning, but I'm not going to cross-examine them. So I don't know where this is going to go, but it will go well regardless. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start by getting everyone to introduce themselves and just ask them some questions about what they're involved in so they can talk about it and how it all came about. So I'll start with you, Anne, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So you have been involved with the chaplaincy work in this area, in the Clarence Plains area. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in that space?
Okay. I have the pleasure of actually just spending time with people. That's really what I do, and in a sense it's a little bit like filling gaps. So it's chaplaincy support under the guy who was up here before with the...
Steve Shane.
And sometimes there are just people who could do just with some time, some women who could do with some time, so yeah, that's what I do.
How did they come about?
You ask.
But in terms of how did the conversation with Steve?
It actually came about, Matt, going back a few years ago, yeah, you did share in church as we were kind of moving into this community and just kind of put out some ideas and thoughts on things that could be done. And yeah, it kind of, my response was, okay, what can I do? So I went, you might remember I came to you and said, okay, this little patch of time, once a week, is potential for me to do something. What do you think we could do? So I guess the conversation, that's kind of where it started, and then Steve was involved, and yeah, it just kind of formed itself from there.
Was this something, to what degree did you feel God was leading you in this? Was this something that was a bit opportunistic, or was it something that God had been speaking to you about at the time to do?
I think I was very aware, as we did kind of come into this community space, your community is where you have opportunity to relate, and so I suppose my radar was kind of like, well, okay, God, what is it that I can kind of do to have some kind of impact in our community or make a difference? So I guess it was probably a conversation I was having with God, and your message that day just, I suppose, was a trigger for the next step to follow through. Yeah.
Thank you. David? So David, you are quite involved with the Nigerian community of Tasmania. So can you tell us a little bit about what your role is with the community?
Thank you, Matt. I'm the current president of the Nigerian community in Tasmania, and it came about as a need to help Nigerians who migrate into Tasmania to settle very smoothly, because Tasmania and Australia is very far away from Nigeria. So just to help them have an easier ride, and then to encourage them to be abiding citizens of this beautiful state, and also to contribute their quota to community development and to fellowship together. So that is how it all came about, and the role that we play is just working that's in our daily jobs, because most Nigerians here are employed, especially in the health sector, as general practitioners, medical specialists, nurses, and we have a few clergy, ordained ministers in the Catholic Church, and even Reverend Sisters. So they participate in doing their job in reaching out to the community, and then we try to volunteer as well to the larger Tasmanian community, and we try to support good causes like donation to charity, especially last year that there was a lot of wildfires. We as a community were able to reach out, and we try to sort of relate well with the African community and other multicultural communities in Tasmania. So that's how we do.
And do you feel that there was God's leading to be involved in this in some way, or is this something that just naturally stepped into because of people you knew?
I think it's the latter. I've always been willing to, serve, and whereas I'm busy in my professional life and family life, but opportunity came during the election 3 years ago during our annual general meeting, in which they were trying to get the position of the presidency filled, and people were not, very willing in terms of busy, perhaps they can't do it, and so, and one of someone I could call an elder emphasized the role of the position and the fact that it should be done, and he encouraged me, and then I raised my hand, and he was quite earlier. So it's God, has been with during the journey, but it wasn't like a revelation for me.
Great, thanks, David. Go to Dave, look to the other end. You weren't expecting it, were you?
Cheryl was getting really
So, what is tap placking?
Yes. So, I'm sure everyone's heard of tap placking out there. Yeah. No. It's I keep forgetting what the acronym stands for. No, I don't. It's Australia and Clarence Plains Land and Coast Care Group. So you always have to memorise that before you leave today, I hope. I got involved in the history side. There used to be a separate history group in Clarence Plains, But I know it shocks you, but there's not a lot of people who are interested in senior history. At the time, I'm sure it's going to change. But so we kind of, the history nerds, or whatever you want to call us, history cool dudes, have sort of become part of the land care group. So that's where I found a little niche.
And do you feel God was part of that journey to get involved?
I do, Matt, because like Anne said, I do remember that Sunday, I can't remember, was it a Sunday, or was it some other meeting we had here, where you encouraged us in your gentle way. I mean, who's could be gentler than Matt, but just could you think about, getting involved, bearing in mind we're all very busy, but he does it such in a gentlemanly way that you couldn't say no. And so I thought, well, and I approached him, I think, fairly soon after, and just to see, well, I don't know what's really going on, because I don't live in Clarence Plains, but we're becoming part of this community, so I thought, well, I don't want us to be a visitor on a Sunday. I want in some way to be able to connect, and so, yeah, it sort of didn't seem like anything was going to happen because the history group had died, and I thought, oh well, never mind. And so I said, is there something else I could do perhaps? I'm into records and information, so perhaps I could do something in that space, but that didn't sort of kind of happen really. Again, I was shocked that no one would be, needing those sort of skills. But anyway, but then it sort of, it emerged that they were going to be involved in that sort of the heritage side of Clarence Plains.
Thank you. In fact, that Sunday I made a bold statement that said, if you want to get involved in Clarence Plains, think about what you enjoy doing. Don't think about what the need is. Think about what you enjoy doing. Come and see me. I'm bound to be able to find something for you to do. Days when I first go, I'd like to do history. And I'm like, oh. And then what about records management? It's like it was killing me, really. So we got there. Because God is whatever and slightly making bold statements I can't follow through on. Cheryl, so you have in some ways started to get involved in the area of fostering. Yeah, in some, yes, yeah. But that's partly, I think, the story is, what have you done and how did that, let's start with how it came about actually.
So first of all, I'm an artist, so I have my own art business, but we're friends with Brett and Tracy, and my older sister's done permanent fostering for a long time. So I've always loved the idea of fostering, but actually when it comes to the crunch, fostering scares the daylights out of me. And so I kind of thought, that's just far, far too big out of my hands. And probably answering the next question, we had Al from Fostering Hope come and talk to church. I think it was a bit before COVID. Anyway, during the service, I really felt that the Holy Spirit wanted me to do more than just be friends with Brett and Tracy. And I kind of thought, I really don't know what I could do, because it just seems to be you either foster or you don't. And so I kind of thought, what you just said before, look at what you're good at, look at what gives you joy and what makes you happy, and I love art. And I thought, I wonder if there'll be any fostering kids that would be interested in doing an art class. And so I went after the service and talked to Al, and he gave me his wife's business card, said to contact her, I think contact Mary, and she'll talk to you further about it. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. By the time I got home, I'd already talked myself out of it. I thought, no, I don't want to do that. That's, what if they ask me if they have somebody's sad stories, and, I thought, no, I don't want to do that. But I thought, Al already knows I've got his wife's card, so I better email her. So I emailed her, and she said, yep, that would be great. I'm sure there's some kids out there. The reason why I thought of this is, as a parent, what gives me joy is seeing my kids be creative and enjoy things. So that's why I wanted to do something for fostering, to see fostering kids enjoy themselves, and just having a little bit of a relief day for parents, just to have some time just enjoying watching their kids do art.
Thank you. So let me just open it up to questions. So anyone or no one can answer. Like someone that wants to answer would be good. In terms of what you've been involved in, and Cheryl, I know yours is fairly, new.
It's very new.
Yeah, so, but in terms of that, what have you learned about people?
Okay. I think what I have learned, and I keep seeing it over and over and over again, is that people need people.
Yes.
People need somebody face to face. I mean, we all went through COVID and the wonders of technology, which are awesome, but the preciousness of actually getting back face to face with people. So I think life is so much about relationship, and aloneness, whatever that looks like, just drags people down. So I think in every situation, every sense of community we've got, whether it's people you bump somewhere, people you're at school with, people you work with, people you bump into when you walk in the mornings. There's kind of community spaces here, there and everywhere, and it's actually all about the relationships, which is really basic, that we all have an opportunity to kind of make a difference that way.
Right, thank you. Anyone else?
And I think people will come on the journey with you, but you can't count on that, absolutely, because people will let you down sometimes. And at the moment we're working on doing a refresh of the Rugby Historic Trail. You might see the sign sometimes when you're coming into Rugby, the Brown's road sign, which means history. Anyway, and so we're looking to, so there's a group involved, but we're looking to add to it. We're looking to include more Aboriginal history as part of the trail, and just to, it's been about 20 years since it was done. And so there's a core of people involved, and there's some sort of on the periphery, and you don't know if they're going to come on the whole journey with you on this project, and you can invite them, but you can't make people, much as gee, that person would be great for helping us in that aspect of what we're trying to do. And it's a learning journey for them, I guess, and for me, for the rest of us, to trust people, but know that they're not going to be trustworthy all the time, because I'm not. And that's the challenge of life, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone?
The people that I went to their house to do the art class, they're an older couple, and they're probably, at a guess, late 60s, so they're in their retirement, and I just sat down briefly. I didn't even know if they were a Christian family or not, so when I got there, I did a quick scan of the household verses around, and thought, oh good, at least I'm in a safe environment, because I didn't know what I was going into, and because we'd only talked over the email, and the older, she sat down and I said, it's fantastic that you guys do fostering, just having a general chit chat, and she said, our family think we're nuts. So this girl that they looked after when she was younger, then she went back to her family, but the situation's changed, it was unsafe, so she actually went back into the foster care system. And this lady's like, our family think we're nuts, they just think we're just crazy taking on a teenage girl. And which I'm thinking, that's pretty crazy, that's really bold. She's not a family member, she's in foster care. And I remember her saying, and I'll never forget it, she said, what else are we supposed to do? Just sit around and watch TV all day? And I thought, wow, isn't that amazing? They're in their retirement, they could be just travelling around Australia, enjoying watching TV, sleeping in, but they've actually taken on this foster care girl. And I just thought, there's no expiry on doing work for God, and that was really up there. We don't get a retirement date, it just keeps on going and we keep on going. And I was just so encouraged by this lady.
That's great.
Thank you. When you're involved in what you do, in terms of your faith itself, what questions go through your mind, either during the moment when you're doing it, or afterwards, that you sort of ponder, that you question, you grapple with, I guess, if anything? Tough question, that one. Anyone?
I don't know if I'm answering it, so to stop you.
That's all right.
I think, just going back to that time poor aspect, I was just thinking, and it does involve faith, you know, so you're sort of thinking, okay, I'm a human, and so I've got limitations. Where's that line, I guess, where, okay, I can be stretched here, you know, I can, and I need to be stretched because it's good for me, you know, as some of us are getting, I won't look at anyone, some of us are getting older. So I need to be, because you get into this middle-aged, that's the next generation, or whatever. But no, that's not exactly what you're saying, Cheryl, that we need to be kept stretched, but there is the balance in that too, isn't there, where you sort of say, okay, I do need to bring others alongside to help in whatever we're, the task, the project, and so it's finding that wisdom, and hopefully as we get older, we have more wisdom about that. Sometimes when we're younger, we lack a little bit of wisdom, but yeah, as we get older, it's, I know my capabilities, I know my strengths, as you were encouraging us, Matt, to where can we contribute in our area of strength, but where can we be stretched and keep growing right up to the day we die, you know.
Thank you.
I was just thinking about probably the question I would have asked myself the most would have been that sort of anticipatory kind of question of, God, what if I don't know the answers that might come up to questions in amongst the space, or what if I kind of get it wrong? What if, you know, just that sort of aspect, and you recognise that when you are spending time with people that you actually don't know or don't have background with or don't have a relationship with, you're actually on fairly sacred ground by being given permission to be with them. So I think it's that kind of weight of God, will I get it right? But always reminded of the fact that the Holy, we sang it this morning, you know, we're not alone, and I think that's what gives me boldness to go beyond the front door. That not alone. God will give the answers, and
Thank you, fantastic. We might wrap it up there, but I'll give everyone an opportunity. Is there anything you want to just say generally in terms of your experience that you'd just like to leave us with this morning?
Okay, thanks. I think what I want to say is that I've realized now that there is a lot of joy in serving the community. And like Andy was saying, it doesn't matter if you think you're not the right fit for the job or that you don't have the right answers. Things may fit in place, people may appreciate or they may not appreciate, but the most important thing is that you, especially when you're on the route towards living what you're doing better than you found it, or making life a bit easier or better for people who are coming out for you. So irrespective of the fact that people may not be trusted fully or that we're not perfect, the most important thing is that you derive that joy, and that is the thing that can be the fuel, especially during the tough times when you are left alone to make all the decisions or even to have the burden, what I actually term the burden of leadership. So that is what I have realized.
Yeah, just have a go, and one day we'll find out history is the thing. But it's very cool. It's very cool, and it's a great way of getting to know. That's the thing I guess I've learned is that I'm through it. I'm learning where Clarence Plains has come from, and that is informative. That your own community, it is okay. We can't dwell in the past. I agree, but we can learn why our community is where it is now because of what's gone on in the past. And so I joke about it, but there's that aspect.
And so always happy to run a seminar on local history at any time. We might leave it there, but thank you so much. Just down near that. really value honesty. I think honesty is a bit of a paradox, but when people are honest about the struggles and even the failures that they have, I think there's a real encouragement that I draw from that in a weird way, because it makes me feel like I'm not the only one. And, you know, really, I don't want to take away from the stories of David and Cheryl this morning, because I think they speak for themselves. They are people just like you and I. They've used what they had. They've started with, by myself, started where they are. They've used what they've had and they've done what they can, and they continue to do that. It's not complicated, and I mentioned last week about keeping it simple. It is not complicated. They've taken what's in their hand and they've stepped out in faith for God. That is all. Yeah. And God loves it. You know, God values faithfulness over anything we can do. He wants us to step out in faith. And people have been blessed because of it. Justice has come. And you might look at some of the things that people talked about that they're involved in, and you might think, well, how is that showing justice into people's lives? It is because there's been an intentional decision to relate and to build connection, to take up an opportunity, and to see where that goes, and let God direct the paths. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. So some of you might be thinking of some things that God's been poking you a little bit to start. Well, how do you start? This is where this comes in. It's not as impressive as a jumper that's got a deer impaled in it, I must admit. But I could use that too, actually, for this particular example. But when I did a leadership course a few years ago, they said if you want to get something done, I've got to be careful, I probably could throw this into the crowd and take someone's eye out, but if you want to get something done, the best thing you can do is throw your hat over the wall. Because if you throw your hat over the wall, you actually have to climb the wall to get the hat back.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good way to think about things. So I want to just finish today with a quick practical exercise. Involves all of you if you participate. For those of you that have phones, I want you to take your phones out. And I want you to think about someone that God's been putting on your heart that you need to just catch up with, spend some time with, do something for. I don't know, you'll know what it is. Or something that you've been wanting to do, but you just haven't got around to do it, something that could bless others. So what I want you to do is, if you've got a phone, take it out, and I want you to text someone. It can be anyone. If it's a person you want to catch up with, text the person you want to catch up with. But if it's just a thing that you need to do, text someone and just say, just letting you know, I want to do this. If you don't have a phone, then what I'd encourage you to do is just chat with the person next to you and say that. So quick few seconds to think about what that might be, but then send a text message. We might hear phones going off around. Yeah, that's fine. But just do it, because it's throwing your hat over the wall. Once that text message is sent, you can't take it back. Well, not without great difficulty anyway. So that's the concept. Just put it out there. Yeah. So if you could just spend a bit of time just doing that now, and I'll pack these chairs away. And someone can make me send a text too after the service. There it goes. Continue to send those texts while I just finish. So what does God require of us? To act justly and love mercy and to walk humbly with our God. So I'll encourage us all to begin to create a network of justice across Clarence Plains and across our worlds. Let's commit to treating everyone with dignity as though everyone has been made in the image of God. Let's offer genuine hands of kindness and friendship as we love others in the way that we love ourselves. And let's encourage those around us constantly as though God has a plan for everyone we meet. Let's start where we are, use what we have, and do what we can. Let's keep throwing our hats over those walls. Can we pray? Father God, you are a God who wants this much more than any of us in this room, even collectively. Your heart is for people to come into relationship with you. Your heart is for people to become whole, to experience justice, to experience what it's like to be a son or daughter of God. And you have asked us to play a part in that as part of your plan for us as your family. And I pray that for all of us, that we'd be encouraged today to start where we are, to use what we have and to do what we can.
Yep.
That's all we need to do. Just that simple first step of faith, and just to continue to do that for our lives. And I pray that you would, by your Spirit, just encourage us to continue to do that, encourage us to be courageous, and encourage us to see others in the way, or help us to see others in the way that you see them. So, Father, we commit our lives and our worlds to you, and we commit this community to you.
Yep.
And we pray that we can be a part of your work on this earth. May your will be done. In Jesus' name. All good, Aaron?
Oh, it's all fantastic.
Sorry, I've got to get my hat back.